And the hangout on air is live. This is the Nilvah Nexus, a weekly roundtable, usually weekly roundtable, Torah discussion and chat, roundtable addressing of the Torah for the masses. I am James, and if you like what you see and you want to join in on the conversation or get more information, you can always go to our Facebook page, the Nilvah Nexus. And if you want to get in on the conversation on the Google Plus YouTube side, you can email me at jamestheidolsmasher.com. We didn't have a Nexus last week because yours truly was in Colorado driving. That's about what most we did on that vacation was drive. Although some of it was up to the summit of a mountain, which was quite pleasant. Didn't have a Nexus, so we'll be doing some catch up because I do want to kind of talk about Korahc a bit. Because something was kind of made clear to me recently, too recently, I guess. That perhaps the rebellion of Korahc was done for the sake of heaven. Someone said that he had his own ideas, which you can't fault him for having ideas. It was the way he went about it. Something along those lines. We'll have to look at that later. Also, I really dig this particular parsha this week. Chukat. Let's get for everybody's following along at home. A portion. A parsha is a portion of the Torah that we read every week, and we cycle through it from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah every year. This week we are on. This week's parsha is Chukat. It is Numbers 19, and it is the red heifer we'll be talking about. Or it's in there anyway, and it's going to go from 19 through 21. No, excuse me. Let's try that again. Chapter 19 through 22, verse 1. So there you have it. David and Gav here. It is good to see you both. Anything anybody wants to bring up before I go ahead and start reading stuff? Anything on anybody's mind? I will be, by the way, the good David is having a delicious cold brew, so I got my favorite delicious cold brew, Samuel Adams Boston Lager. It is kosher, and I don't work for the company, but I am a very satisfied customer of old.
Okay, well, now you got me curious. What does kosher mean for beer?
Well, you couldn't have a Jew working on Saturday when you make it.
Makes sense.
You can't have grafted fruits or vegetables in your beer.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, it's got the this one's not the Orthodox Union. It's the K with a star. Yeah, well, anyway. I've heard that all their brews are kosher. So now you have to properly check the hops. I'm kidding. Bad joke. Bad joke.
I got the joke.
Maybe it's not a bad joke. Maybe not at all. I'm going to make one more post here so we can maybe get some other folks to tune in and or join up. So one more post. All right. Now, James, you say you're a Torah observant Christian. Is that how you identify? I guess.
Yeah. Essentially, the short version of the story is that I grew up Baptist, and I started noticing inconsistencies where the Bible says do this, this, and that, and the church was saying no, don't do those things. That's a bunch of bullshit. So I essentially went through a long period of, not totally intentionally, but it just sort of happened where I was trying to purify my beliefs. That the inconsistencies made themselves known, and I just started thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. So maybe there's a different way to look at this. So that's essentially how I came into it.
It makes a lot more sense than a lot of things.
Yeah, it does. Plus, well, first of all, I think that the Old Testament law makes a lot of sense politically and socially and, hygienically and so on. But also the New Testament doesn't make any proper sense and can't without the Old Testament, because all the people that were being, written to and who were doing the writing and who were being spoken of were essentially Jewish. And so, taking it without having Torah is taking it totally out of context. Plus, there's a whole ton, I don't know what percentage it is. I'm sure someone's calculated it, but lots and lots of the New Testament is actually quotes or references to the Old Testament for obvious reasons. And so, having grown up not being as familiar with the Old Testament as I should be, considering I'm in a religion that supposedly is based on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's so much I missed. I just never realized.
It's not a wonder anymore. But so many people look at it as just something like stories. That's the thing. It's just a group of stories. It's just more fairy tales to put up on your Disney shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And there's far more to it. I was describing a fellow who, because I said that Torah was a miracle. He's like, why is Torah a miracle? And I went, okay, I'll make this short. And about 6 paragraphs later, it's like, I can't even begin. It's like a mosquito in a nudist colony. Where do I begin?
When you realize what a leap forward it is, in terms of, just take one topic like hygiene, for instance, where it wasn't until recently, like the last couple hundred years, that people said, I guess we should wash our hands when we're sick. I guess we should quarantine people that have diseases. Well, that's all in there.
Mm-hmm. Jews do like to wash their hands, don't they?
Yeah, actually, you're probably familiar. There's a passage in the New Testament where there was some argument about whether they were doing too much hand washing.
Yeah. I'm not even sure that the hand washing ritual was a thing then, like we know it today.
Yes, it is. Yes, it was.
It was.
Very much so. It had been for about 600 years at that point.
Oh.
It's very old.
How's the boy, Gav?
Good. Doesn't really do the sleep thing, but neither do I, so it's okay.
I saw you passing out. You're hoping that insomnia is not a genetic thing.
Yeah. My daughter doesn't. Yeah, my daughter could sleep all day, but
he's soaking it up. He's like, all right, finally healthy enough to get out and move around. That's too cool. He's beautiful. He really is. He's good and healthy. And
thank you. Yeah. Very excited.
so when you read when you begin the Parsha, verse 1 on chapter 19, I'm reading through just the text, no commentaries, and it's not really made clear here why there was a red heifer, does it?
No.
Now, we're taught that. Go ahead, please.
It's not one of the laws that there's supposed to be a rational explanation for.
Isn't this what made up for the golden calf?
There's some commentary on it, but there's nothing definitive. We just know it's part of the ritual to remove the impurity of coming into contact with a dead person or being near a dead person. And beyond that, we don't really know much about it.
Yeah, I've heard. That's what I heard too. That the red heifer was what made up for. But beyond that, I mean, beyond hearing that, I really can't find anything that relates the two. I'm going to ask you about that. Now, I've also heard conflicting, or I've heard other things that maybe the mouth of the earth didn't actually swallow Korahc and Korahc and friends didn't swallow them up, but more like he became trapped in materialism forever.
Okay.
Doesn't I mean some of his children live, right, with him.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm thinking of is he wasn't. I can't find anything in here that says that he wanted to go against God. He wasn't out to necessarily drive people away from God. He just thought that he could do a better job than Moses and Aaron, right? So I'm thinking of rebels today because everyone seems to be a rebel nowadays.
Yeah, it's trendy.
Is trendy. I never thought of it that way. I got a lot of questions, and I really don't know what to say. I can just keep asking questions all night.
Yeah, I felt that you were sort of implying something about him being rebellious, and one of the things I've thought about having read the story was essentially I'm very skeptical of authority figures, and I think that's healthy because we should be very careful not to just believe anyone who claims, oh, God said I'm in charge of you. So I've wondered, it almost doesn't make a lot of sense to me that he was punished. I accept it, that it was the wrong thing to do because that's what Yahweh says, but I'm not sure I fully understand it because I feel like some amount of skepticism has got to be healthy. And where is Yahweh drawing the line between simply asking the question, right? I need to be sure that this is from God versus being rebellious against God.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm thinking of the spies too, because they had no faith. They had to go see for themselves. They were, I guess, skeptical, and it didn't work out well. I mean, you have to understand too, the presence of God, he was with them at this point. He was not far and distant.
That's a valid point to make. At some point, the evidence for it becomes so overwhelming. How do you still not believe?
It's human, isn't it? I always got so frustrated. There's Sinai, there's Moses, everything you've been through, and you still couldn't help but make a golden calf. Really?
I always thought that was incredibly stupid, but then I always have this second thought, which is maybe I would have been just that dumb too.
Or maybe we still are in this world. I know something I want to bring up. News flash from around the world and up your street. use. There was a Ten Commandments monument that they tried to put up over here on City Courthouse. And it was up for a few days, and some dude in the middle of the night took his car and drove right over it, smashed it to pieces.
Damn.
Then they made another one and tried to put it there on the courthouse, or the Capitol grounds. And people were like, take it off. It's favoring a religion. If screen share works, I'm going to try and find it. So they wound up putting it up the road at another building, like the Republican House or whatever they do. However, they did get one up in Arkansas, and the same guy who 3 years ago and smashed those 10 Commandments did the same thing in Arkansas. The thing hadn't been up 24 hours. Destroyed. Picture up. I'm not sure we're going to be able to talk too much on it because I don't know how clear it's going to be. But let me see if I can screen share. Screen share still works here. Because we got toolboxes back. I got my lower thirds. Oh, okay, it has to be in a different tab. At the top, they have it's very, it's very Christian, and I'm not here to knock Christians or Christianity, but it's not a complete. It's abridged. It's an abridged 10 Commandments, which always kind of bothered me. It probably wouldn't have bothered me years ago, but today, yeah, it kind of. Why would you want to, abridge on there if you're going to do it? Here we go. Screen share. Let me share is the screen I'm using. Here we go. Let's try this. Can you see it on your screen?
Yeah.
There we go. What I don't like about it, you've got the all-seeing eye of Horus up there. That just kind of bothers me a bit. Yeah. I have to be honest with you.
And they put Jewish stars at the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a Christian monument.
It's very abridged.
Judeo-Christian Egyptian monument.
The one they had up here, everyone was trying to make a big deal about keeping it, and they had a picture on the paper of a man bent down on one knee with a rose in front of it, his hand on it, and his head down. So when it got run over by a car, I really can't blame it. I know that sounds really bad because I can say about the 10 Commandments, but it's when you put it up on a courthouse or a Capitol building, it's almost like it's a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the lawn of a courthouse, it makes no sense. You can't put "Thou shalt not steal" and "Thou shalt not bear false witness" on a sign going into a courthouse that's full of judges and lawyers. Okay.
Have either of you seen a movie called The Frisco Kid?
Years ago.
With Harrison Ford and I'm blanking out on his name now conveniently. Gene Wilder, thank you. Yeah. This reminds me of that where in the last scene they're having dinner and he says, I don't want to offend you, but I chose a piece of paper over you. When they were shooting at you, I wanted to go get the Torah. And he realizes that it's not about the Torah as an object, but about the Torah as the ideas in that. Not the written out piece of paper, but the things themselves, the actual laws. And this kind of reminds me of that, where you have someone bowing down as if they're worshiping this thing, as if it's some sort of idol or statue.
With the flower, you gotta have the place the flower there.
That's right, like it's a grave or something.
And my comment on Facebook was idolatry much? Kind of left it. You know, that ties into this week's Parsha. I think it's this week's Parsha. In Chukat, the serpents were biting Israel and people were dying. When they were in the desert, they were like, it was a plague of them, or they were pestilence at the time. And Moses says, God, I'll need a little help. And he says, you know, make a brass serpent wrapped around the staff. And when you hold it up, the people's gaze will be directed towards me, the serpents at their feet, and they will live. Hence, we have the medical sign in the West with the snake wrapped around the pole. And I love bringing this up because, you know, it's a good example of how, you know, what happens in 2 Kings. I don't have the text handy. In 2 Kings, the king had to actually destroy, because people were going to it and giving it flowers and serving it and bowing to it and praying to it. It was holy. It was obviously historical. You know, it's something that should be remembered, but people began to serve it, and it had to be destroyed. And I think that's what I saw with the monument. I bowing to it. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna work out real well. So, although I don't like anybody smashing the 10 Commandments, and I would rather have somebody know them via maybe maybe Christianity or another religion, hear of them or know of it at all. But I couldn't help but chuckle when the same guy puts it on Facebook, mind you. To himself, he's like going, "Woo, freedom!" and smashes into it, and the smile on the guy's face on his mugshot was very, you know.
Well, this is the way I look at it.
And I just couldn't help.
Even the evil to accomplish his deeds, right? He used the Pharaoh of Egypt to smite the Hittites, right? So hey,
right.
This guy wasn't right to do it, but maybe it was right to be done, if you see what I mean.
Exactly.
Well, here's my thing. I don't agree with it being where it was, but I don't think it's up to the private citizen to just be like, hey, I'm going to destroy this either. Like, I do believe in civil behavior, even when you disagree with something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think very many people agree with that these days.
Yeah, I know. In my opinion, that's a problem, but
I'm just saying you're in a minority at this point.
Oh, I know. I disagree with you. Nazi! Oh, okay. Calm down.
Fascist, racist, hater.
Trump is like literally a fascist. Okay. Clearly you don't know what a fascist is. What exactly are you paying for at that liberal arts college?
6th grade education.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like the quality of education in America, you know, in 100 years, America went from teaching Latin and Greek in high school to remedial English in college.
Wow. Yeah, they kind of like them stupid. I don't understand why they got rid of civics.
It's very easy to rob people of their rights when they don't know what the hell they are. Same reason they stopped teaching logic, too. They used to actually have formal logic classes in public schools. Haven't seen that in about 40 years.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
To imagine that being in high school. Because I took a formal logic class in college, and it was absolutely not required. I just wanted to. And everybody was struggling with it. It was kind of sad to watch.
It can be hard, but they used to teach it to people who were really. It used to be like a middle school subject in America, years and years and years ago, and then they stopped teaching. Like there was this whole. I don't know if it was under Nixon or was it the guy that followed him, but someone began this process of dumbing down education, and it never quite stopped.
I would be surprised if it happened as recently as Nixon, but that's plausible. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened before that even. Maybe Johnson.
The Johnson era makes a lot more sense. That was when a lot of changes came about.
Yeah, really dumb ones.
Hey, but at least we have clean highways, right?
True.
Yeah, great, yeah.
That's a fair
Well, you know,
for clean highways.
that is not a very good barometer for societal success. Somalia has clean highways, okay? Not that impressive. If they can figure out how to clean a highway.
Well, you're at a preschool now.
Somalia has no function in government. People are like, well, who's going to build the roads? It's like the people who live there if they want a road. It's kind of how it works.
That's how it worked for centuries. Yeah, it was Lady Bird Johnson, wasn't it? She's the one who was all about planting flowers and beautifying the highways.
Speaking of government policies, and earlier we were talking about people not being civil. Here's a YouTube video you guys might enjoy. It's a song some guy wrote about the inflammatory rhetoric of politicians, which is not at all on topic to our Bible verses, but whatever.
I don't know if I can play it in here. If I play any copywritten material, it doesn't allow the hangout to be visible to everybody. Well, he was really cool too. He was just getting into Torah. His dad was actually a rabbi, or he was wanting to get back into it, and it was on his dad's side that he was doing it. And he showed up and had a picture of John Goodman from The Big Lebowski, and they flagged that was his avatar. And yeah, half the world can't watch that video now because why show John Goodman without somebody getting paid? See, Amalek attacks. Weakest. Let's see. Use the serpents. Now it says fiery serpents. The stone edition, which is where I'm at right now, a great buy, worth every penny. Fiery serpents. I'm not sure if I've ever asked the reason for why it was called fiery. Commentary here: the fiery serpents, the poison in their fangs made their victims feel as if they were burning. Okay, snakes were the fitting agents of punishment. The primeval serpent had slandered God to Eve and was cursed forever. It was punished by not enjoying the taste of its food. Now it punished the ungrateful slanders who defamed the food, the flavors. That's from Rashi. I want to read that last bit because okay. The primeval serpent had slandered God to Eve and was cursed forever. It was punished by not enjoying the taste of its food. Now it punished the ungrateful slanderers who defamed the food that had a multitude of flavors. So is this manna that we're talking about? Because they're gripe of the The people grew short that day and spoke against God and against Moses. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to die in this wilderness? For there is food and no water, and are disgusted with the insubstantial food. See what I get for skipping a parsha. Has manna fallen yet at this point? Torah is not in chronological order, and it actually takes some doing for an outsider like me to come in and try to figure out. I haven't heard manna yet, so I guess it hasn't. I don't remember manna falling so far in the Torah, but we still have a bit to go too. Okay.
Manna is in Exodus 16, looks like.
Were you gonna? It's not? Okay. All right. Conversational at David, isn't it? Hey, let's do our ring. Nick. Yochanan, John, I hope he's been able to. I know he's having some issues with doing the urologist, and I don't know what was going on with him. I haven't talked to him in a week. But he sent me the Gutnick edition, Chumash. I haven't explored it near as much as I have the Sansino or the stone, which I've scratched the surface maybe. But there's a great little reference in the front of the Chumash that meaning of the title of the parsha, why it's called what it is. Chukas. Parsha Chukas spans a period of nearly 40 years. Oh, well, here we go. This told you about it. It's not in chronological order. Parsha Chukas spans a period of nearly 40 years. First, the parsha discusses the laws of the red heifer, to be on the first of Nisan, before the sin of the spies and Korach's rebellion. But when we jump almost 40 years, of Miriam and Aaron, and the conquest of Sichon and Og, okay. But then we jump almost 40 years to discuss the passing of Miriam and Aaron and the conquest of Sichon and Og. This begs the question, what is the inner reason why the Torah chose to backtrack to a time spies and jump suddenly forward to the end of the Jewish people's journey in the desert? To answer this problem, another issue that appears to be perplexing here. Near the end of this parsha, Moshe sent spies to Yazer, echoing the sending of spies nearly 40 years before. We would assume that after being sentenced to wander in the desert for almost 40 years, the Jewish people would have learned their lesson and taken extreme precaution not to repeat the sin of the first spies. Yet we find that in our parsha, the first spies' key errors appear to have been repeated. Spies deviated from the mission they were assigned. Similarly, in this parsha, Moshe sent men to spy out Yazer, but instead of merely collecting information as Moshe, they deviated from their mission and they captured its villages. Also in this parsha, after conquering the land of Sichon, the Jewish people settled in all the cities of the Amorites in Heshbon, and all its villages. Surely, settling these lands rather than entering the land of Israel resembled the sin of the first spies. In truth, however, the very opposite was the case. The Jewish people of the second generation did not repeat the sin of the spies, but rather they sought to correct it by showing additional enthusiasm about conquering the land of Israel. Thus, when Moshe sent spies, they did not merely survey the land, captured its villages. And while God had told them that they were going to conquer the land of the 7 nations, the land of Canaan, they nevertheless desired to settle in the lands, for these were part of the extended borders of the land of Israel promised to Abraham. But this is the inner reason why our parsha begins with a passage which we said before, the sin of the spies. Enthusiasm to enter the land recorded here, the Jewish people succeeded in correcting the sin of the spies, reaching their prior spiritual level before the sin. And this passage is reflected too in the name of the parsha, Chukat, of the Hebrew word chakika, meaning engraving. For here we read of the Jewish people's desire to inhabit the entire land promised to Abraham, and that a love of the land created their hearts and minds like letters engraved in stone. Based on Sichas Shabbos Parsha Chukat 5750. Again, that was out of the Gutnick edition. When Aaron passes on, when they disrobe him, that's a very emotional part. The first time I read that, I had a real hard time, and I used to read them very dryly. When we first started these little hangouts out, I had a hard time, not getting choked up. The beat goes on. I also see thinning out. A couple parshas ago, we had the golden calf, and God's like, who's with me? And all the Levites went to one side, and here it's instead of who's with me, it's like isolate yourselves from them, and the world will, or the earth, the mouth of the earth will eat them up. I have heard that the mouth was actually something day. That it literally was a creation, not necessarily of the earth. We all had pictures of sinkholes. A huge one happened in South America. Colorado had a couple, so when this parsha came up, we were all coming to class with our own stories of these sinkholes opening up, and the rabbi was real quick to say, not the same thing, nothing to do with it. The mouth was created on the 6th day, the mouth of the earth. So we're not talking sinkholes. I want to get back to one other. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask, Gab. Now that you're here, this was I was asked a question, and I didn't really know how to answer it, because there are some. When the elders were sitting, were dining at the foot of Sinai. Gazing upon the Lord, there was a vision also of a river of sapphire. Let me see if I can find it. I choked at the time. I mean, it's real easy for, you know, us to say, yes, God has no form. And that's just the way it is. And it's easy to get that through your head. But for people who are questioning and asking questions, I think that they said, and I want to see what the stone here says, that it said beneath the feet of Hashem was a river of sapphire. And what I'm wanting to know is what, you know, does it say that stretched arm of God? In fact, we have a bit of that. We don't get that until Exodus, the anthropomorphization. Now I'm going to keep flipping, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it now that I'm.
You mean like referencing? You mean like referencing having body parts or type of form?
Well, yeah, when he said that beneath the feet of Hashem, and I've also seen another translation that says they gazed on the form of the Lord. What does the dry Hebrew say? I'm trying to find the page or because I can't remember.
Which chapter and verse?
I'm getting it.
Okay.
Exodus 24:10.
Oh, you are the man. Exodus 24:10.
Exodus 24:10. Okay. Vayeru et Elohei Yisrael, and they saw the God of Israel. Vetachat raglav k'maaseh livnat hasapir uchetzem hashamayim latohar. And there was under his feet a kind of paved work of a sapphire stone. This is hard. Hard to translate. Like the very heaven for clearness or clarity or purity, maybe.
So it does say feet.
Raglav, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I was wanting to know.
There's no real reason to think that it's being literal.
Well, some do, and I didn't have an answer. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I'm darned. Like the essence of the heaven in purity. The appearance of the glory of Hashem was like an all-consuming fire on the mountaintop before the eyes of the children of Israel. Moses arrived in the midst of the cloud and ascended the mountain. Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, we'll just have to chalk it up to anthropomorphization. That was I didn't know if it actually said feet or not, but it never said the form of the Lord. Now I don't know that translation. I guess I don't know if it was must be a Western translation or something.
The most literal way I can translate that is they saw the God of Israel. It doesn't say a form. It doesn't mention like a body or anything. It could just as well be.
I do agree. There's no reason to take it literally, but I have a question about it, which is, couldn't Yahweh take a form just to make it easier for us to understand him?
I don't believe so. Just to have a form would contradict his nature.
An angel can take form.
Mm-hmm. An agent operating on God's behalf could, I believe, but I don't think God himself could. I mean, would.
Yeah, Moses said he has no form. You saw no form. I mean, when you think about it, the three men who showed up to Abraham, they were substantial. They were real. They were three-dimensional, four-dimensional beings that, were gracious and accepted, Abraham's very loving but human hospitality. They had a form. Even Balaam's donkey. That's next parsha too. Could see the angel. I mean, God spoke to Moses in a burning bush, but that wasn't God. The voice of God,
but it was not. The burning bush wasn't God. It's more like hey, focus on this. I have some important things to talk to you about.
Yeah, no, very important. Well, I'm lost for words today, y'all. It's a rare thing, I think. An emissary. We're talking about, okay, God's emissary was Moses. This is on 16, chapter 20:16. We cried out to Hashem, and he heard our voice. He sent an emissary and took us out of Egypt. God's emissary was Moses. He used the word Malair, which also means angel. Mem Lamed Aleph Resh, I believe. What's the one that ends? The Resh that ends. It's still a Resh, right? No? That's going to bug me. Now I have to go look. I won't flip through my flashcards either because that would take too long.
I didn't think there was is there a final Resh?
It looks like a Resh.
Oh.
I guess that's a Kav. It looks like an extended Resh, like with a longer. I guess that's a Kaf. It would have to be. Yeah, there is no final. Yeah. So, Molech. Anyway, he used the word angel, which is also he used the word which also means angel because the prophets are referred to as angels. That's what Rashi says. According to Ibn Ezra, Moses meant literally that an angel had accompanied the Jews from Egypt. Wasn't there always an angel there? Yeah. I guess they weren't made aware of the angel until until I guess the Ark was built in the Mishkan. There was the Shekinah that rested over the Holy of Holies, and there's also the pillar by day and the fire by night. Is that the same? Is that the same thing? What directed them in the wilderness? Is that the same presence that rested over the ark or the tabernacle?
The pillar of fire is a different thing.
Okay. Okay. Well, he said, "I'm sending an angel. Follow him. Heed him." All right. David, I got a question for you, if I may make so bold. How do you work in Paul's words when he talks about things like the evil one or the prince of the air and things like that? How do you work through that?
I don't understand that question, actually. What do you mean?
It was in Hebrews somewhere. He said that the world is in the control.
Two things I
of the evil.
Before you go any further. One is that Hebrews doesn't have a stated author, and there's some debate over whether Paul wrote it or not. There's a sect of people who think he did. I'm not sure why. Second thing is, I actually completely reject the book of Hebrews. I don't believe it is biblical. It's full of shit. The book of Hebrews explicitly says that the law is stupid and it had to be done away with. So obviously, if I accept the law, I have to reject that. So I accept that it may be that I've misunderstood what the author really meant. So maybe someone could show me how I can interpret it differently. But it seems very clear to me that it rejects the Old Testament, and therefore it's no good to me.
There was also a rejection of a rewrite of Jeremiah, where God says,
that is, yes, that's the verse I use when I talk to people. I don't talk to people often about it because tradition is very powerful, and people are used to certain books being sacred. They're in the collection of, this is what we consider the Bible, although it depends which group you're talking to, of course. But when I have politely asked questions, I think there's an issue here. What is your opinion? That's what I went to, is in Jeremiah, where he says there will always be Levites. So it seems to me, unless someone can explain to me something I don't get about it, if it says that was done away with, but Yahweh said the Levites would always be around, you can't have it both ways.
So I know like the standard church position is that Hebrews is one of the letters of Paul. Do you think the other epistles of Paul are authentic, or do you accept them? Or
I've not seen any issues with any of those.
Okay.
Yeah, the prince of the air, the evil one that rules this world. It doesn't sound like a guy who would go to the temple and make an offering, like we hear in other, where, Paul was due to go to the temple and bring an offering for and he did so, and he was very obedient to it, and seemed like, sometimes he seems like a Torah observant Jew, and then we get into books like Hebrews, it's like, what is this? This is not normal.
Yeah, the Hebrews doesn't. I don't believe he wrote Hebrews. Now, of course, I wasn't there at the time, but if you look at all the books there's basically no debate about certain books that he wrote them, essentially. He starts them all out. He has a very particular style. He starts out, I, Paul, and I'm chosen by God, and you should trust me because I have read the Old Testament ever since I was a little baby, and goes through this whole spiel about how you should trust him, and he's really special. He's clearly a little bit narcissistic. and then you get the Hebrews, and there's no stated author. It never says why you should believe it. And then, like I said, it completely contradicts, to the best that I can understand it, the Old Testament. Whereas the other works that are that there's no debate about who wrote them, those don't, as far as I've seen, contradict it directly. I'm not sure where the idea that he wrote it came from. I'd have to look that up. I'm sure there's some historical reason. Someone probably coined the idea at some point, and it stuck. I know that there's a sort of a debate in churches over whether or not he wrote them, and there's some people that, for some reason, it seems they have an emotional attachment to the idea, and I don't know where that comes from. There's other people who either don't care or think he didn't write them for various reasons.
What is it about? Because, you know, you've kind of had a background similar to a lot of folks, Noahide folks. What is it about Torah that kept you coming back? Was it that there was nothing else left, or was there something that grabbed you by the boo-boo?
It's two things. One is that I sincerely believe that it works in practical terms. So any idea I've ever been able to come up with of any philosophy, you know, how do I think the government should work? How do I think I should interact with other people? Has been consistent with Torah, right? And any idea I've tested and said, well, this is what I think Torah says. Do I think this would work? Is this a good idea? It's always passed every test. The other reason, and to be honest, this is the real reason, I'm not going to lie. The real reason is because I was not raised with Torah, but I was raised with a certain set of beliefs. And if I accept the premises I've always accepted, I must logically accept Torah. I don't have a choice about that. The logic only works one way.
That's the one thing I think I like best about it. Although I kind of like to go on the cosmic end a lot of the times, if you will. I really like how practical it is.
Right. And, you know, one of the things is there's like a whole different mindset in Hebrew thinking versus Western thinking. So, for instance, the Greeks and the Romans have imagined all sorts of crazy ideas. What is the afterlife like? And the church has made up all sorts of bizarre things, and you get things coming out of like even out of works of fiction, like Dante's Inferno. There are people who believe that some of those things are literally true, and that they're like somehow from the Bible or something. Well,
yes.
I found out the word Sheol means the unknown or something to that effect. And in other words, in a Hebrew mindset, what happens when you die? I don't know. I'm not dead. Right? You accept that there are limits to what you know instead of speculating.
Yeah. People seriously. And Ben, I was based in Texas. Catholic. And,
sorry, you broke up there. What'd you say?
I think, you know, people are always either Baptist or Catholic in Texas.
Yeah, those are the same thing.
And they were real big on fallen angels and the war in heaven and Lucifer and the angel of music and all this stuff. And you go, where is it in the Bible? And they joke.
Yeah, that's not even in there. There's all sorts of weird things. And you know what's funny is you'll find if you were raised with some of these beliefs, they're so ingrained in you, you don't even realize that you've been taught. They're just sort of the shadows of memories. One example I have, and it is from the New Testament, but I was convinced that God had changed, on the road to Damascus, changed Saul's name to Paul, if you know anything about that. And it's in the Bible, and it says that he changed his name. And one day, for whatever reason, I started looking into it, and I realized it's not even in there. I don't know if someone must have told me that. It's complete bunk. And well, I won't get into conspiracy theories, but I do think there's a reason for people wanting it to be that way. Because it makes him less Jewish, right, if he has a Greek name. And you can kind of help divorce the Bible a little bit from its Old Testament roots. But, you know, there's all sorts of things that I used to think, probably because I was told, maybe some of them I inferred, I can't be sure, that you go through and you go, oh, that's not even in there.
No, the fallen angel thing and the war in heaven thing, if I remember correctly, that comes from like a 16th century English poem. It has nothing to do with the Bible itself.
That would not surprise me in the least.
That's Dante.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. Yeah, Venetian. It was a Renaissance era Italian poem, which is a magnificent work of literature. I've read it several times, but it's not divine.
And you know, that's the reason that Satan in Christian circles is referred to as Lucifer, because there's an Old Testament verse about that. Well, I went and looked it up for myself one day, and I realized it's talking about some king. It very explicitly says it's not talking about some supernatural being or the heavy angels or Satan, the adversary. None of that. It's talking about some king that was alive at that time, and it's very explicit about what it means.
It's talking about Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, and it's really explicit. And I'm trying to figure out how anyone got. Well, maybe it means something else than what it says.
What's the interesting thing is when they're able to because Nebuchadnezzar's name means morning star, but it's when Jesus calls himself morning star in the end of Revelation that they didn't translate that to Lucifer. They kind of left that morning star alone. But but when it came to in Isaiah, is Isaiah 14.
Yeah, you got to be careful not to be too consistent, or your beliefs start to show.
Wow. I think it's cool. People are coming to Torah. That's it's going to happen eventually, and I'm coming to realize I can't save everybody, and I can't. I've got a warlike mentality sometimes against certain, especially people in my government. I'm like, hang him. And
Jeffersonian a point of view.
Sometimes I guess, I don't know. We've got actually, Gav, you said something a few weeks back. It's like we're going to get it right, that the world will get it right. And you said, yeah, those who are left. And I had to think that, yeah, there's going to be that not everybody's going to, make it like that. Nations are going to go away. I'm really having to rethink about a lot of my warlike mentality. I've always had a very chess, martial arts approach to things with my opponents. And I'm coming to realize that sometimes you just can't. Sometimes people just don't want to get on the ark, Yep. They're not going to make it to the ark, and I should be beating myself up, trying to make it a perfect world now. I really got Pam mad because I said Jeff Sessions needs to get hung, and she was very upset with me. Pam is an old friend I've known for many years. She was in the first class I attended online when I started taking classes in the old virtual yeshiva, and she was very upset that I wanted Jeff Sessions dead. Well, I would consider him to be an enemy of the people, because he's dying to put people in jail. And I'm in a state now where you got a lot of old angry Confederates who love the idea of putting people in prison for 20, 30 years for.
He's emotional.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with the disproportionate African American jailings.
Okay.
He's literally the biblical definition of a tyrant.
You think so? Okay.
Oh yeah, he enacts unjust laws and imposes himself on people, and he wasn't chosen by the people to be their leader. He doesn't rule with their consent. People seem to forget Jeff Sessions was appointed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the what for, and I think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe because you want God's enemies to be crushed, but at the same time, should I be praying to? It's like you pray for your nation, but I still struggle with that because some part of me still wants Godzilla, and and some part of me thinks that I would be right in asking God to bring on Godzilla. I'm speaking figuratively with a little humor to try to lighten it, but you know.
Where is this Godzilla going? Because maybe literal wouldn't be so bad if it was like in the capital.
Yeah, why not? That's on the coast.
Those buildings are borderline idolatry, right?
And there's the Panama Canal, so Godzilla can get over there quicker underwater. You know, to the coast.
Man, you've really thought this through.
So shouldn't I pray that Jeff Sessions changes his mind instead of just eliminating my enemy? Wouldn't it be healthier if it's just hard. I mean, that's actually a difficult thing for me to do. I know better now because I'm in the mindset, or I guess I'm here. But that my first instinct, I think it would be better off if I were to pray to Hashem that he turns his heart rather than getting him out of the way. And I have a habit of smash it, you know.
You have to want to change your own heart too.
It would take that, wouldn't it? It'd have to. I could pray to God to change my heart. Oh.
Nobody wants to do that. Everybody. Oh, hold on. There's a poem my father-in-law always says. Let me see if I can find it.
I'm easy to talk to God about troubles I have like that. I'll just stop in the middle of the day and say, Lord, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This guy or this is angering me, and I'm not going to go blow these people up. I'm not going to make death threats. You know, what am I going to do? Who am I? You know, not really who do I think I am, but what am I supposed to do with this? Because it's really bugging me, and you know, I'll be at home in a few minutes, and I really don't want to walk in the door with a really bad attitude for something that nobody should catch the wrong end of. But maybe asking God to change my heart. Ooh. No kidding, right? I mean,
I can't find the exact poem, but if I recall, the way he says it is, it's always the other guy you see, but he is me for everyone else.
Yeah.
So there's this concept that you're allowed to pray for the destruction of your enemies, but when it actually happens, you're not allowed to rejoice over it.
That makes sense. The way I look at it is I can ask for anything. I just should know better than to think that because I ask for it, it's going to happen.
That's right. God owes you nothing, just like he owes me nothing.
Yeah, I guess I never brought it up to God what it is I actually want. Maybe I don't know what I didn't know what I want. Thanks, Gab. It's been chewing on that for a while. I sometimes feel like I can isolate. I feel like I would be isolating myself, you know, from the problems of the world. Because I think I could really go extremist. I think I could really go, you know, where I would just study Torah all day, you know. I could do that. I could get into it. I feel like I would be leaving something behind if I did that.
That's a huge mistake.
What's
huge mistake? This is the problem we have today. The people just want to study all day and study all day, every day for their whole lives. Like in the Kollel system where men, you know, study from dawn until dusk, 7 days a week. They don't work or anything. Torah isn't meant to be studied. It's meant to be studied so that it can be lived. Okay? Just amassing knowledge of all these laws and how they're applied is absolutely no good to you if you never go out into the real world and apply what you've learned.
How do these people eat? They
get paid. The kollel pays them to study. And their wives work.
Like outside the home? Like
outside, inside.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
Well, you've seen the movie, Ushpizin?
Yes.
So that the main character in that movie, he was studying in a kollel. And like one of the main reasons why they had problems because he had missed a few days, he didn't get paid for that month. Remember? And that's why it's such a big miracle that he gets that envelope full of money and everything. It's a very common thing. You know, people, they get paid to study in a kollel. They just sit in the dark room all day studying Torah. They study, you know, the Torah as it relates to business, but they'll never go into business. They'll study Torah as it relates to interpersonal relations. They'll never go outside and talk to anybody. It's just become an academic pursuit for the sake of studying in and of itself, which is a big problem. It's a big, big problem. If the people who know Torah the most never go out and try and interact with the world, what good is it?
That's what happened in Christian monasteries. The only people who knew how to read and know the Bible couldn't have kids. And couldn't teach anybody else how to read. So is it a taxpayer thing, like a welfare thing, that gets them food on the table? And
I mean, most kollels take donations. Yeah.
Okay. I could see the attraction to it, but like I said, I feel like I'd be leaving a chunk of myself out, you know, or I'd leave a part of something. It wouldn't be right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Talmud says you study Torah in the morning and you work in the afternoon. You have a day job to support yourself and your family, and you're supposed to go out and be a part of the community.
Yeah. I'm thinking even just working in a field and, you know, bringing in bread and grain, fruit and vegetables and stuff. You'd have to work somehow.
Yeah, and that's something in the last 150 years we've kind of lost in some segments of the Orthodox community. I mean, look, Rabbi Yochanan was a shoemaker. That was in the 2nd century. Yeah, Rashi was a wine bottler. He had a grapevine. The Rambam was a physician. And all the greatest rabbis today, quote unquote greatest rabbis, they just sit around and study all day.
Does the kollel, do they teach? Do they pass on their knowledge, or
you study with a partner?
But it's other people who are studying for a living.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
A yeshiva is very similar. Here's the thing, though. A yeshiva is temporary. You go for between 3 to 5 years, and then you go out and you get married and you live your life. A kollel is for people who are already married, and this is what they plan on doing for the rest of their lives. But
I was reading, I posted it, and it made a lot of sense, and it seemed radical, but Rabbi Chaim Chlorfine was, and I've suspected something like this. In essence, part of what he was saying was that he was saying, be a Levite, you know. The rabbis are not the end all of Israel's place in the world. It doesn't end with the rabbi. It's supposed to be the Kohen. It's supposed to be the Levite. It's supposed to be, because their dedication is Hashem. And I don't, you know, I like that. I like that idea. I like that mentality. I don't know how things are sorted out right now. I have a lot to learn, but you know, I have nothing against the way things are done. Something's changing though. Something's going to change. There will be a shift. Everybody's getting a shift, some more than others, but there's going to be a shift, a paradigm, and at least how man views himself to Israel, or views himself to Torah, but views himself to God. And you know, when you read the Bible and you've got these cities of refuge, it's the Levites who head it up, who run it. So you're going to a city run by priests. You know, when you go to the temple, it's the priests who guard the Holy of Holies. Not knocking a rabbi, or you know, I'm not at all knocking rabbis, but the idea, I don't think a lot. It certainly is a Noahide for many years. The priest was decoration in my mind, or it wasn't. It never occurred to me their place in my life, or it never made sense to me. They were just, oh, that was the priest, and that was then long ago and far away, and that was the end of it. You know, oh, there's no temple, no priests. That's the end of it. And yet I'm learning that, you know, actually that lineage survives, that it's still here today. It turns out it didn't even occur to me for years that my godfather is a Cohen. I mean, his last name, Cohen, Cohen.
Well, you know who else is a Cohen? Rabbi Katz.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And Rabbi Tovia Singer also.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, they're here. They're real.
Very real. And the ones that have been DNA tested, they all have a lot of DNA in common. They all descend from basically one family.
See, the Jewish people, far more reliable about their history. I'm talking to some guys in a great debate room, and you know, sometimes you have to talk on the base mud level, but then sometimes you get, you know, really good questions and smart people, and it's never occurred to them that there's an actual history that survives. It's reliable. That, I mean, the more you learn about the people of Israel themselves, you know, not just Torah and Talmud and all that good stuff, but just the history of where you guys have been the past 3,000 years, and that we're all coming together now, or everybody's coming together now. And I know there's division and there's barking and people disagree and there's better ways to do it than this guy or this bunch over here and yada yada, but I don't know if y'all know this, but you're proving to the world it's true. Just your existence. The more you look into it, it's hard to buck it. I know we do, but you have to go far out to buck Israel and history. But we're moving to a priestly mentality, maybe. And Righteous Dude, you know, our good friend Gary Gravy was like, you know, we're moving back to the age of we're going to go back to the age of the priest, like it's supposed to be, man. That and I was like, wow, yeah, it's, you know, we need the rabbis. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe it's time we Noahites begin to recognize, you know, the priest, the Cohen, and their place and what they do. They, you know, their devotion is to God, and they minister to the people. You know, Kung Fu's pretty, you know, pretty, and the way that, you know, that's exactly what the Buddhist priests did. The Shaolins, they took care of the poor, fed the poor, and fought off the warlords who would come in and take their stuff. And very devout and very, you know, humble people, pious people. They're devoted, but yet their service was to their community. I think any minister, pastor, any religion of good faith, and when I say good faith, you know, of good faith, you genuinely want to be a good person in the world for whatever reason. And you've got not necessarily shepherds, but a priest in Israel. Oh, there's something else I read. Who was saying this? There was a fella. I don't remember his name. He wrote an essay, an article, and it's out there. I don't remember my source at the moment, guys, but he was saying that the purpose of Israel as a rabbi is to be a shepherd rabbi. I think that's what he was called. He was trying to call it, that you're supposed to keep them from straying in a community and keep them together. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I just think that I personally think the world's ready for more than that. Because you don't need a shepherd. Like, what is that? The path and the gateway have no meaning once the objective is in sight. And I think the objective is beginning to show itself. I think that's why people like you and I are getting into Torah, and I think the objective is getting there. And there's very, very little need. I think when everyone's going to the same place, you don't need a leader. When everyone can see the objective, you wouldn't need someone to shepherd you. You see what I'm saying? I hope we can get bigger. I hope our minds can expand, and some of us, our hearts need a little softening. They need a little downy softener. I don't know. It's a great thought. I don't know the ins and outs and one man's opinion, but it sounded about right that we, you know, maybe we should be maybe the priest should not take charge, but, you know, maybe we should be looking to more priestly things in our lives. And maybe the warrior isn't going to be there always, you know. A priest is a warrior, really, when you think about it. But I don't know.
I have a friend who is trying to remember. He's some kind of Native American. I don't recall which tribe. And he says in their language, they don't have a word for warrior exactly, like that would translate that way accurately. But the word that's sometimes translated into warrior means the bearer of the burden of peace. And I kind of think that's how a priest should be, right? It's someone who bears the burden of peace.
Very well, very well. That's, oh yeah. I like that. Where did that come from again?
A Native American culture.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not sure which one. Maybe Lenape. I think Lenape.
That's awesome.
Oh,
I have a soft spot.
I'm happy. They're, yeah, they have a reservation in New Jersey.
They have reservations in New Jersey?
It's not federally recognized. It's recognized by the state of New Jersey, but it's not federally recognized. And they get treated like crap, like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only are they Native American, they're also mixed. They freed slaves back in the 1800s, intermarried with them, so they're all mixed Native and African American, and because of that, they still are treated pretty badly.
Dang. I have Shawnee blood. They weren't recognized till about 10 years ago or something.
Yeah. My friend is, I'm not sure exactly how old, but maybe like in his 50s or 60s. He's old enough. He has told stories about the Native kids being essentially kidnapped by the government and sent off to boarding schools, and they had their heads shaved, which is a really big deal to them, and were not allowed to speak their language, and they were kidnapped and abused by our government. And this was like within his lifetime.
Oh yeah, in Canada, too.
Yeah.
Well, Canada, thinks that's like this big forward thinking, and they treat minorities better. Not if you're Indian, I can tell you that.
As a poster, you want to bring him to the right faith, convert the heathens. There's a rise here. There's a rise in remembrance and a rise in pride and culture here. In Oklahoma, anyway. And it's good. It's good that they're, I think it's good. I went and had a stomp dance out with the Chickasha. Or Chickasha? Was it Chickasha or the, no, it was Chickasaw. We had a stomp dance with the Chickasaw. I was going to play some stickball, but I was exhausted and we had to leave by that point. But they're really bringing it back, and they're taking pride in what they do. And, they got that casino going, and all the old white folk come out there and give them their money. And, they might have something to a little leverage, something to work with. Maybe they can buy a congressman and have him do the right thing.
Good. They're crazy. I don't mind them taxing Whitey over, using the casino to do it.
Gene Simmons will have a rock and brews out here and casino here in Oklahoma soon. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
He's from here.
Yeah. Born a month before my mom.
Yeah.
1949.
A different name too, but
Chaim Weitz. Weitz? Yeah. I wrote him a love letter the other day. I've been a Kiss fan since I was like 3. Okay, I was born in 74. And they were, it was fun, and everyone said they were Nazis. It's like, because the lightning bolt SS, and it's like, I don't think so. Paul, Bruce Kulick, and Paul Stanley, and Gene, all 3, no. Anyway, I finally got around to writing him a letter and just tell him, because I know it's rock and roll and it's a business, and not everything is kosher with Kiss. But as far as rock bands go, they always stayed very positive, and they lifted their head up high. And in interviews, they're always saying, believe in yourself, that you can achieve your dreams, and that sort of thing. And of all the rock bands, if the Jews had their place in rock and roll, I'm proud that it was Kiss. And I just wrote him a letter, and I didn't even call him Mr. Simmons. I called him Mr. Weitz, and referred to Paul Stanley as Mr. Eisen, and just thanked him and just gushed on, and the fact that I've been studying Torah for, 15, 20 years or whatever, seriously for 10, it makes me, I feel a bit of pride that, my favorite band that didn't sell out or didn't, and, always just stayed, I think, a positive influence. They give all they do on stage. They give you what you pay for, and they're artists. They do their own thing or whatever. I know that, but I still wrote him a love letter and said that, it makes me proud that you're born in the Holy Land, that you were Jewish, and the greatest rock and roll band is, started by 2 New York Jews, makes me very happy. I wrote him this long letter. Now I got to write one to Paul, and I'll be finished.
What are your thoughts on Bob Dylan?
I want more. I don't know him as much as I think I should. He's Jewish. Is he Jewish?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, lots of Jews like him. I didn't even know that he was. He's got like 3, some of my favorite music comes from Bob Dylan. I've never owned an album of Bob Dylan. I can just sit and read his lyrics. You Got to Serve Somebody is probably one of my favorite songs. I like Bob. Is that your guy? Are you a Bob Dylan fan?
Yeah, huge. I actually have a picture of him somewhere when he visited here, and he visited the Western Wall, and he put on tefillin and everything. That one didn't make the newspapers in the States, but yeah, and he wrote a very, very at the time it was controversial. It's still controversial, very controversial. He wrote a song that you don't find it on a lot of his greatest hits albums that are sold in like record stores or anything, because it generated a kind of unpopular backlash about it, but it really kind of endeared him to me. He wrote a song, if you ever get a chance to look it up and hear it or actually read the lyrics, called The Neighborhood Bully. That's a really good song.
Typing this out and taking notes.
Okay. And he also did
Check that out.
And then
he
also did Blowing in the Wind, which is basically it's a long series of unanswered and unanswerable questions. You know, what could be more Jewish than that?
He was very forward thinking for his time too. I mean, he's considered the greatest songwriter in American history, or I've heard that. Wow. Okay, Gav likes Bob Dylan. I'm gonna have to pay attention to some more Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan's great.
Mm-hmm.
You written him a love note?
Yes.
Yes. I'm not the only one.
Never got a response, but I definitely wrote it. Of course, granted, I was, what, 16 maybe at the time?
Nice. Gonna have to serve somebody. It's a good tune.
That was a terrible. I could hear every word you said. That's nothing like Bob Dylan.
It might be the devil, it might be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Couple versions. He did a real. He did a couple versions. He does a really slow, soulful version.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And it's long. It's like a 7-minute song, I think, but it's one of my favorites.
I'll have to check that version out. I don't think I've heard that version.
It was on the Sopranos soundtrack. I do like my Sopranos. I do like my Sopranos. You want to see my wife punch me? We go down to Falcone's. I get a slice of that cheese pizza. I start doing the Tony Soprano thing where I judge out my bottom lip. And I start doing the, oh, she just walked in. I'm getting a dirty look from her right now. It's so awesome.
Okay, you do an Italian accent. Reminds me of Analyze This, where Billy Crystal pretends to be the mob boss, but he's really Jewish.
There's one way. You want to see my wife get mad? Just ask for my Tony Soprano.
I posted a link to that song, Neighborhood Bully, and I posted a link to the lyrics right below it.
Good. I'm going to copy that. Thanks for showing up tonight, guys. This would have been a very, very, very short hangout if it were just me. Summertime's always slow for the Nexus. This will be entering in our 4th year. Once we get through Bamidbar, we get into Deuteronomy, we will have been going into our 4th year. We will have been in our 4th year. And I've noticed in the summertime, you don't always get people, but in the wintertime, when everyone's trapped inside and bored, oh man, it's full house. I was going to read the Torah for this week as a way to finish out the live portion. Any objections from anybody?
I listen to Torah. I think that's a bunch of. No, just kidding.
Whatever, dude.
Okay. You asked if there were objections, and I thought since nobody objected, I should offer some.
Thanks.
If I had too many beers, is that what's going on?
Well, I won't be so willing to hear objections next time.
Is this like at a wedding? You say you want to hear objections, but don't actually want to hear them?
Right. That's always funny.
Yeah,
How many people are going to look around?
That's definitely my fourth year talking.
When you're at a wedding next time and they read that, you know, when they say, if anybody here believes these two should not be wed, speak now, forever hold your peace. Sit in the back of that wedding and see how many people will actually do this right here.
Yeah, you know what you can do too? Rather than explicitly objecting, just go, like you say something, but you're not gonna. Or afterwards, saying, gee, I thought for sure someone was gonna say something.
Yeah, go ahead. No, don't worry about me. No, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm good.
Well, if nobody else is gonna say anything, I'll just keep to myself.
You just set that man up for the best honeymoon ever. That's too good. I'll never be able to try it. Oh, I gotta see. That's something I had to put in a movie. I can't do it in real life.
There you go.
All
God,
right.
I think about it all the time. I thought I should be a movie maker because then I could do that.
Okay, if you're following along at home, the Haftorah is a section of the Hebrew Bible that directly pertains to the portion of the Torah that we just read. Portion Parsha. This is the Haftorah. It's the after Torah. Haftorah's Chukas today is Judges chapter 11. We're going to go verses 1 through 33. Just like a Freemason. Kidding. Okay. Here we go. Once again, if you're following along ahead to home, this is Judges 11, 1 through 33. God willing, I won't mutilate the text. It's Jephthah, I believe is Jephthah the Gideonite was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of a concubine. And Gilead begot Jephthah, and Gilead's wife bore him sons. And when the wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah away and said to him, you shall not inherit your father's house, for you are the son of another woman. So Jephthah fled because of his brothers and settled in the land of Tob. Empty-handed men gathered themselves about Jephthah and ventured forth with him. After a period of time, the children of Ammon made war with Israel. And it happened when the children of Ammon made war with Israel that the Gileadite elders went to fetch Jephthah from the land of Tob. They said to Jephthah, go forth and become our chief, and we will do battle with the children of Ammon. But Jephthah said to the Gileadite elders, forgive me, guys. Always consult your local rabbi. I don't know what I'm doing here. Go forth and become our chief, and we will do battle with the children of Ammon. But Jephthah said to the Gileadite elders, was it not you who hated me and who drove me away from my father's house? So why have you come to me now when you're in distress? The Gileadite elders said to Jephthah, for this have we now returned to you, that you will us, and we will do battle with the children of Ammon, and that you shall become a leader unto us, unto all the inhabitants of Gilead. So Jephthah said to the Gileadite elders, if you return to me to do battle with the children of Ammon, and Hashem delivers them before me, I will become your leader. The Gileadite elders said to Jephthah, Hashem shall be witness between us if it is not according to your word that we do. So Jephthah went with the Gileadite elders, and the people set him as a leader and a chief over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before Hashem in Mizpah. Jephthah sent emissaries to the king of the children of Ammon, saying, was it What is unto you and unto me that you have come to me to make war in my land? The king of the children of Ammon said to Jephthah's emissaries, because Israel took my land when it ascended from Egypt, and from Aaron until Jabbok, until Jordan, return them in peace. And Jephthah once again sent emissaries to the king of the children of Ammon. He said to him, Thus said Jephthah, Israel did not take the land of Moab, and the land of the children of Ammon. For when Israel ascended from Egypt, Israel went in the wilderness until the Sea of Reeds, and they arrived at Kadesh. Israel sent emissaries to the king of Edom, saying, okay, here we go. Let me please pass through your land. But the king of Edom did not listen, and also to the king of Moab did Israel send, but he was also not willing. So Israel sojourned in Kadesh. It went through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and came to the eastern side of the land of Moab, where they encamped across the Arnon. Let's see, Aaron earlier, Arnon. But when they did not enter the did not enter the border of Moab, for Arnon is the border of Moab, then Israel sent emissaries to Sihon, king of the Amorite, king of Heshbon. And Israel said to him, Let us please pass through your land until my place. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his border. Rather, Sihon assembled all his people, and they encamped in Jahaz, and made war against Israel. Then Hashem, God of Israel, delivered Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and he struck them. And Israel took possession of the entire land of the Amorite, the inhabitant of the land. They took possession of the entire border of the Amorite, from Arnon to Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan. And now Hashem, God of Israel, has driven out the Amorite before his people Israel, and you would possess it? Do you not take into your possession that which your God Chemosh bequeaths you, that you may possess? But all that Hashem your God drives out from before us, we shall take possession of it. And now, are you much better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever strive against Israel? Did he ever do battle with them? When Israel dwelled in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aurora and its villages, and in all the cities that are alongside Arnon for 300 years, why did you not recover them during that time? I have not sinned against you, but you do me wrong to make war against me. May Hashem, the judge judge today between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon. But the king of the children of Ammon did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. The spirit of Hashem was upon Jephthah. He passed through Gilead and through Manasseh, and he passed through Mizpah. He passed through Mizpah of Gilead. From Mizpah of Gilead, he passed through to the children of Ammon. Then Jephthah declared a vow unto Hashem, and he said, If you will indeed deliver the children of Ammon into my hand, then it will be that whatever emerges, that will emerge from the doors of my house to greet me when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, it shall be unto Hashem, and I will offer it up as an elevation offering. And Jephthah passed through the children of Ammon to do battle against them, and Hashem delivered them into his hand, and he struck them from Aurora until you come to Meneth, 20 cities until the plain of Cheramim. A very great slaughter, and the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. What we're not getting is the rest of the story. It's actually a tragedy. I know we end on a high note. Let's do the JPS. There's something else that happens with this particular judge.
Yiftach.
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 You shouldn't make promises rashly.
Say what? Oh, what he says? Yeah. So basically what happens, and I'm just going to cut a story short, is there's two opinions. The Yiptah. Saying that right. He the first person that came out of the tent was his daughter. And he had to keep his vow. You can't break it. You can't break a vow. You just can't do that. It's why we were always warned never, beware of making a vow, because Hashem takes that very seriously when you do. You can maybe promise, you can sign a contract, you do something, but taking a vow can be dangerous if you're not careful. But some say that, it's the words of it. Where was I? Where did we end up on 20? When Yiptah arrived at his home in Mitzpah, there was his daughter coming out to meet him with timbrel and dance. She was only a child and had no other son or daughter. On seeing her, he rent his clothes and said, "Alas, daughter, you have brought me low. You have become my troubler, for I have uttered a vow to the Lord, and I cannot retract." Father, she said, "You have uttered a vow to the Lord. Do to me as you have vowed, seeing that the Lord has vindicated you against your enemies, the Amorites." She further said to her father, "Let this be done for me. Let me be for 2 months. Let me be for 2 months, and I will go with my companions and lament upon the hills, and there bewail my maidenhood." "Go," he replied. He let her go for 2 months, and she and her companions went and bewailed her maidenhood upon the hills. After 2 months' time, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed. She had never known a man, so it became custom in Israel for the maidens of Israel to go every year for 4 days of the year and chant dirges for the daughter of Yiptah, the Gileadite. An elevation offering, you have to burn the whole thing. Some say that's exactly what happened. Others say that she just that she never had children and never married. But I think the majority.
A lot of medieval commentators say that it wasn't that he made like a literal sacrifice of her. He dedicated her to the Lord so that no man could ever touch her, and she couldn't have children, and she had to stay basically in seclusion the rest of her life. Which, while not pleasant, is certainly more appealing than option one.
Right. You say but yeah. Yeah, the semicolon, or at least in the Mechan Mamre, I don't know about here. And he did to her as he had vowed, and she had never known a man. So, why would you weep for her maidenhood and not her life if she died? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the rest of what happened there. But he did say that it wound up being his daughter. In other words, watch your mouth.
He's kind of a jerk. She comes out and instead of saying, "I shouldn't have said that," he says, "What's wrong with you? You came out of the house," and blames her for it.
Seeing you has totally depressed me, honey.
Yeah, I'd start like making every excuse and loophole I could. It's like I may have come out of the tent first, but that neighbor brat came out second, and I saw him first.
You could go all Bill Clinton and be like, well, what's the definition of a thing? Because it was it first thing that came out of the tent.
Well, what is the tent exactly?
Yes.
I mean, there's got to have been some germs that came out of the tent, and I just didn't see them because they were small.
I didn't see her. But what is here? What is there except here without a T?
What's the definition of out? But here's a serious question, though. Do you think that it would have been wrong for him, if we're assuming that he literally sacrificed her, would it really have been wrong for him just to say, clearly that's not what God wants me to do? Even though he made the vow, would there be some kind of loophole where it goes, yeah, you're not supposed to kill your family members?
Yeah, he was a judge, so he. From what the history that I've read, he was a bit more of a warrior than most, as you can tell, obviously, when you read about him. But he, you know, if he was a judge, he would have to have some knowledge of Torah, and you would think that the story of Abraham and Isaac would clarify that. I don't understand why he would say something. I don't have any commentary on it. I don't have a good chumash for the whole Tanakh. But I don't know why he would make a statement like that. I will give the first thing that comes out of my tent as an elevation offering. You know, what did the sheep and ox or whatever, like, you know, did they
question what would have been in his fucking tent?
Right. Why was he thirsting for victory that badly?
Is there some sort of weird Hebrew expression where it means two different things? Maybe.
No, not really.
An elevation offering's an elevation offering.
Well, I was referring to like out of the tent or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here because, yeah, you bring up a good point. Why would he even say such a silly thing?
I get one in victory.
He thought she'd come and greet him.
Of all things that you would say to get victory. This is Catherine. She wants to join in.
Hello.
She's not she's not exactly a good conversationalist in Torah, but she definitely brightens up the place.
You like her? Yeah. You want to say hi? What are you waving?
What if there's another baby?
Hello. Hi. Who is that?
Whoops. This is Charlotte. This is my youngest.
That's Amy.
Did I say Charlotte?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. That's 4 beers I've had. This is Amy.
Hello, Amy.
Can you say hi?
This is Catherine. Hi, Mom.
Hey.
I'm Jane. Got a lovely baby there.
You look very surprised.
Hello, Amy.
She's like, someone's talking to me, and I don't know who it is.
You have beautiful eyes. Yes, you do.
No, don't touch that. You're gonna make a mess.
Yeah, but it makes cool sounds.
I'll move it away. Did you say hi to... Did you say hi? Did you wave?
Story was
All right. Did you want to read the Torah portion?
Yeah.
So only if it's in Hebrew. It doesn't translate.
This is a great first thing to broadcast. I think that, you know, while we're ahead, while it's good and, you know, sweet and awesome.
What are you fussing about? What are you fussing about?
So if you're watching along at home, thank you for tuning in. We do this every Thursday, pretty much every Thursday, right here on Google Plus YouTube. We've been at this for almost 4 years now. So if you'd like to get in on the conversation one night, it's roundtable. If you like discussing the Torah and all things related thereof, join the Facebook page, the Nilvah Nexus Facebook page, and Echo. Also, me at James, the Idol Smasher, at gmail.com. We'll get you on the mailing list if you're on the Google Plus YouTube side. Until then, on behalf of David and Gav and myself, Shabbat Shalom, y'all.